About the teams who are going to be in Champions League action in midweek. The big feel-good story around the Champions League is Arsenal, who are 3-0 lead against a 3-0 lead against the European champions, a 3-0 lead against the 15-time European champions. So that must mean that all Arsenal fans are feeling incredibly confident about going to the Bernabeu.
Why wouldn't you? You have to feel confident being 3-0 up.
I was joking. Every Arsenal fan I speak to is terrified.
No, but the thing is, Kels, naturally you're terrified because we're talking about the winningest team in the competition and the players that are on show. But what I saw them the other day. You know, I watched them close. I watched them. I've watched Vinicius. I've watched Rodrigo. I've watched Mbappe. I've watched the fact that Jude Bellingham's got to do so much work that if Arsenal can keep the pressure on them by making those players have to try and come back, which they won't want to do, then we'll probably score again. But you know, it's Real Madrid. It's almost like you don't want to play Liverpool or Real Madrid in the latter stages of the Champions League, especially quarterfinals, because something happens, especially when you go to their ground. So I would never take it for granted, but I'd be very disappointed if we lost even to Real Madrid after the performance we put in the other day at the Emirates. So yeah, I'm quite confident about it, but obviously I'm not.
Does the Brentford game and the late equaliser from Brentford and the kind of deflation of that, does that have any effect, or do you think the Arsenal players will be able to separate the two competitions?
Without a doubt, because you know what it means to them. They're obviously trying so hard with the Premier League and getting so close. It looks like Liverpool's going to do that now, but still in with a chance of the Champions League. That's where all their energy probably is now. Obviously, Forest not taking advantage of the fact that they could have caught Arsenal. It makes it even more comfortable for them. But at the same time, you know, all the energies in this game. And being 3-0 up is ideal. I was desperate that Real Madrid didn't score one. But if they score an early one over there, like anyone knows, right, you know, it's a whole different game.
They've never come back from 3-0 down before, Real Madrid.
And now they're playing us. And so, the first time they've ever come back.
The first answer was, yeah, why wouldn't you be confident? And now you've started talking yourself.
You have to be confident because you're 3-0 up.
Yeah.
You have to be, but you're against Real Madrid, so you can't ignore that.
I think that's the bit that gives
confidence. And Camavinga getting sent off at the end.
That's one of the worst you'll ever see at that level.
Exactly. Yeah.
At that level, to see something.
I know Arsenal may struggle with goals in the Premier League, but Real Madrid have got no defenders left. Rudiger's the only one standing, I think, at the end of that. So it's looking really good for Arsenal in the Champions League. It's whether that kind of has a knock-on to the Premier League and vice versa.
Honestly, Kels, I don't think so, because I just try to picture myself in there, in the predicament that they're in now, where they are in the league and everything, and I wouldn't be thinking about anything else other than that game now and getting through that game.
You're going to Real Madrid. Like, you just, as a player, like, you just can't wait for that. I think there would have been some residual disappointment from the weekend, but I think you would quite quickly change your mind, because you're going, do you know what? We had the buzzer through the week. I mean, Declan Rice must just, I'd just love to be in his head for a second, just like that feeling.
You know what would have been good with that though, Rachel? Like you mentioned, Leo, about the chances. Is Declan scored 2 out-of-this-world free kicks, but we created other chances where I'd like to have seen us score them in open play. Yeah. Because you don't want to feel like, oh, if we need somebody to score another 2 worldies just to keep ourselves in it. So you're hoping, Kels, that we can play like we did, create chances and then try and take them this time.
Talking about an early goal changing the whole complexion of games, Villa Park with a 3-1 deficit for Aston Villa against Paris Saint-Germain, who are a very different Paris Saint-Germain from the early stages of the Champions League, from the league phase, which they almost didn't even qualify out of. Now found themselves in the knockout stages, look like a different team altogether. 3-1 to Paris Saint-Germain at Villa Park. But if Villa can get an early goal, is there a way back for them?
There's certainly a way back. I've actually got a ticket.
You're hoping there is.
I see the fans are going to play a massive part. It'd be ideal. I'd love Villa to score in the first 10-15 minutes, because then I feel that we might see that PSG, what we saw earlier on against Arsenal. But it's going to take a massive effort from everybody there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things, I think, about the mindset of, do I think Villa can score 2 goals? Absolutely. But it's, can you stop them scoring another? And so I think it'll be a great game. I think at Villa Park, you know, the Villa will go into that feeling confident because it's at home. Pressure in that in the way that a lot of people think they're out of it, and I think as a player as well, sometimes you enjoy that when people think you don't really have a chance. So sometimes that's a nice feeling because you think pressure's off, but we back ourselves.
Yeah.
Can we get a goal? They know they can. They know they can. They did that away from home. They scored first. You do that, you start asking questions because PSG were a different team at the start, and some of those players that have come in and have changed it for them are young players too. So can you just ask them a few questions?
That's
What have you got away from home? Not in your comfort zone, and you got to try and lean into that.
See, Champions League games feel like something that you can really look forward to, that can add something to the Premier League season. And then you've got teams like Tottenham and Manchester United, where their whole season, it feels like, is resting on what they can do in the Europa League. And they're both, level pegging 1-1 and 2-2 in their respective fixtures. And who knows? Who knows what could happen? It doesn't feel hyperbolic to say what happens next season could rest on what happens in these next 2 games for them.
100%. You look at both of them where they're in the league, and there's no reason for them to be in those positions. There's no reason at all. And for United in particular, this could be the biggest game they've had in recent times. The backdrop of not getting through this could be very, very, very stark to where they want to be. There's been a lot of talk of, takeover and the direction when they go in, but this is not where Manchester United should be. So it's a massive game for them, and the performances leading up to this have not been great. They're coming off a 4-1 defeat to Newcastle. In Spurs' example as well, it's exactly the same thing. Spurs should not be where they are in the Premier League table.
On the weekend's action, let's head off to the Emirates. Saturday night, Arsenal 1, Brentford 1. Steve Moore, it feels a little bit difficult to analyse this game because you can't help but feel it didn't really matter for Arsenal. And I know that they will say they're still fighting until it's impossible against Liverpool, but even Mikel Arteta's team selection probably reflected they've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it? I wonder whether Mikel Arteta might look back in a few weeks and think, I wonder if I'd have played a stronger team against Everton and then also against Brentford and tried to put a little bit more pressure on Liverpool. However, he's decided that the Champions League is the route he wants to take and felt that the Premier League was out of his grasp or out the team's grasp. And would that result against Real Madrid have happened in midweek had he not rested certain players? So I understand both sides of it completely, but looking at this game, it's all eyes on going to the Bernabeu and trying to make sure that they get that result they need.
I think the point is on that, though, that you just said, could they have put pressure on Liverpool? They could have, but ultimately there's a very, very high percentage chance that it wouldn't have changed what happens come the last day of the season and where the trophies.
Possibly not, but what we saw yesterday at the Golf, pressure gets to everyone, and if you put pressure on Liverpool and you get closer and you can put a little bit more. So if Arsenal had beaten Everton, and we're going down a hypothetical route here, but if they'd have beaten Everton and Liverpool then lose to Fulham, come this game, they then win this game and put pressure on Liverpool going into the West Ham game. The pressure in that game for Liverpool is completely different. So then you might see mistakes start to happen and creep in, and then you might see a different outcome in the game. Everything is fine when we look back at it on paper and go, yeah, but Liverpool won that game. Yeah, but you've changed the situation completely. You've changed the pressure of what's going into that game. So there is that side of things as well.
Do you want to add anything on what we saw in the Golf last night, Sue, or we carry on talking about Arsenal, shall we?
Yeah, carry on talking about Arsenal.
Okay, fine. But one of the things, again, for a bit of sympathy towards Mikel Arteta, is that we've probably spent 2 seasons saying you've got to try and give Bukayo Saka a breather, you've got to try and give Martin Odegaard or Declan Rice a rest, that this feels sensible, that Wednesday night against Real Madrid is absolutely... Well, I've seen we've said it a load of times this morning, but this is their season, but it is again for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like Stephen said there, before the Everton game, there was a little bit of criticism that he rotated players, and they were saying, oh, well, with Liverpool dropping points, was that a chance to actually really put the pressure on them? And then they go and produce that performance midweek, and everyone was like, oh, OK. And it's a similar sort of thing. They rotated players, Saka coming back from injury, how key he is. So to keep him fit and making sure that he's available for those big games, similar to Odegaard, and you want all your key players fit and available. And I think Mikel Arteta's just trying to balance that. So of course they want to win every game in the Premier League, and you want to go into that Champions League game in good form. But the fact that they got the draw, they were able to rotate, they know exactly what they need to do midweek, you can understand why he's done it.
It's incredible football, isn't it? Because when you think to halfway through the season, everyone had Liverpool as favourites to win the Champions League, thought they'd win everything. Everyone said Paris Saint-Germain won't do anything. They're arguably the best team in the competition. Arsenal, they felt would win the league, and now they're going down a different route. And suddenly, Arsenal are now favourites to win the Champions League because of that win against Real Madrid.
Are they your favourites?
No, I still think Paris Saint-Germain are the team to beat, and I also think Barcelona are the team to beat as well. I think they'll be, with their forward three, in the way that they play. The only thing is they're a little bit more vulnerable. However, I'm going to put a case forward to everyone here. I would
Sounds like
not.
I don't think Dortmund are going to win it. We can maybe say that.
No, but I would not want to play Inter Milan. Incredible at the back, organised, defensively solid, in the shape where they sit in, but also got goals in the team as well. So it's going to be brilliant to watch. But Arsenal have put themselves right in the mix with that result in the first leg.